Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making some progress on the Land Cruiser build. In the last video I ripped the transmission out of this truck, and today I want to get this thing totally cleaned up and ready for a reseal in the future. So I do plan on going through this entire transmission, servicing it, resealing it, and then also popping off the transfer case and installing low range gears. So I do need this thing to be totally clean before I get to that point, and that's what we're going to be doing today. All right, so as you can see, this is completely covered in oil. The 1FZ had been leaking for a long time from the back of the valve cover all over the transmission, not to mention everything else on the 1FZ was leaking and coating this thing in oil. And I'm sure that the seals between the transfer case and the transmission and the seal between the rear half of the transfer case and the front half are bad too. So what the plan is today is to rip off this wiring harness. As you can see, this thing is totally destroyed as far as the loom goes, and I'm gonna pull this whole thing off and redo it just like I did the engine harness. Plus that has to come off if I'm gonna pressure wash it anyway. Then we're going to degrease this entire thing, pressure wash it, get it clean, and then in a following video, I'm gonna pop the transfer case off and install some low range gears, and hopefully we can get the engine bay of the Land Cruiser clean in this episode as well, because as you can see, that's a heavy hood. As you can see, this is all coated in oil in here, and it doesn't look too hot either. Alright, the transmission is all ready to go. I wrapped up any, wiring that was still hanging off of that and taped up all the sensors. And now we're ready to start cleaning this thing up. But first, let me show you the products I'm going to use to get this thing clean. The product that we're going to be using to clean the transmission is called Super Clean, and this is a degreaser I've been using for years. It's super heavy duty. It does an extremely good job at cleaning dirty engine parts, transmissions, things like that. And full disclosure, they did send me the products for this video. It's not a paid video. They just saw that I was using their products, so they sent some more of it for me to use. So thank you, Super Clean team, for sending these awesome products to use in this video. So as you saw, I had the wheel cleaner, the original spray, and the aerosol can. Obviously, we're not going to use the wheel cleaner. We're going to be using the original spray and the aerosol to clean this transmission. As far as dilution goes, we're going to be using it at full strength. So as you can see right here, it says full strength for auto parts. Now, the reason why they recommend diluting it sometimes is because it's a very strong cleaner and it can kind of eat away at certain materials. I think we're going to be fine at the transmission, but if you're going to use this stuff, you might want to use it on a test piece first, see how it does, and if it does well, go ahead and clean whatever you're cleaning. But we're going to use full strength on the transmission here, and we should be able to get this thing pretty clean. I think I'm going to start with the spray and then go to the aerosol can, because I think I'll be able to get a decent amount of this grime off, and then when I switch to the can, it'll stick on the surface better, and I think we can get the rest of it like that. It's important when we're spraying this to never let it dry on the surface, so if you're going to apply more of it, just keep it wet so it can work its magic. If it dries on the surface, it's not degreasing anymore. Alright guys, so this is the first pass, and as you can see there's a profound difference. We can actually see aluminum again. Apparently there's a sticker right there that we never knew existed. There's a couple there's a sticker right there too, kind of playing peekaboo with us. So there's a couple of areas here on the transmission that just have really built up grime. You have to remember this is 30 years of road grime, oil, all sorts of stuff on this transmission. And on the very first pass, this thing looks a lot better. A lot of people would just run this as it is right now. They'd toss it back in, they'd call it good. It's a part you never see. You can at least, see the transmission now, but it's not quite clean enough for me, especially this area here by the transmission pan. Really don't like how that looks. So we're gonna keep on cleaning this. I think we might do another pass of the spray and then move on to the aerosol once this thing's a little bit cleaner. You also have to consider that we haven't actually agitated that grease yet. And what I mean by that is that we haven't hit it with a brush or anything that would actually flake the grease off. We've only hit it with a degreaser and the pressure washer. So once we actually start, brushing that grease off, it's really gonna get a lot cleaner. But for a first pass, only using the super clean and the pressure washer, I think it's looking really good. It is the next day, and as you guys can see, the transmission is looking way better than before. Basically, the degreaser was able to soften up all the grease to the point where I could just pressure wash it all off. So the plan today is to use the aerosol can along with the wire brush and get most of the rest of this off. I'm not shooting for perfect, but I do want it to look clean. It obviously looks really good up here. I want it to look like that everywhere else. As far as the bottom of the transmission goes, probably not gonna get to that in this video. What I plan to do eventually is tear the transfer case off, stand the transmission up on its bell housing. Would you call it a bell housing on an automatic transmission? And clean the whole transmission off. Also, if you're an automatic transmission guy and you're watching this video, can I set this transmission on the pan on the ground? I'm not used to working with transmissions that have pans. I'm a manual transmission guy, so what's the best way to hold this thing without a fancy transmission holder? I need to get this transfer case off. Alright guys, here's how we're looking after the second coat and some brushing. You can see the brush was really pulling some gunk off of that transmission. So I think I'm okay with this. I'm gonna hit it one more time with the aerosol can, try to get off this area right here. But for the most part, really stoked on these results. This thing looks new as far as I'm concerned. Once I get the transfer case off, I can clean that even further, and the bottom of the transmission, of course. But I mean, even the bottom is looking pretty good. So yep, gonna hit this with the can and then see if we can get it just a little bit cleaner, but really stoked on the results so far. Here's the final product after 3 different washes. I think this thing looks amazing compared to how it looked before. 100% better, totally clean. And I think you'll see here in the before and after pictures that there's a huge difference in the before pictures compared to now. This thing is completely free of grease and grime. We can easily service this thing and see if it has any leaks in the future. Not to mention it looks a hell of a lot better. So now that the transmission's done, we can move on to the engine bay. Onto the engine bay. So this thing is looking a lot dirtier than I remember it being. As you can see, we've had a leak over here from power steering or something for a while. Lots of grime in this area. Both of the frame rails are completely covered in grime as well, and the whole top of the axle housing there, and this panhard bracket, just everything's caked in oil from the motor leaking. We're not going for perfect here, we're just going for better. I'm not looking for a spot-free shine of the engine bay. Definitely doesn't need to be as perfectly clean as that transmission, but I do want it to look a hell of a lot better than it does right now. So I think we'll just degrease this, get this wheel well clean, of course the other one as well. Get both of the frame rails all nice and tidied up, and then we'll probably be good to go. Another thing is that I'm gonna be removing these rear heater lines, not in this video, but I'm gonna be doing this on my own time. I don't think these are necessary for an off-road rig, or basically if you're not gonna be having passengers. It just seems like a failure point for me to have a hard line running down, as well as soft lines that could just go bad, and the ones back there for the heater too. I don't wanna have that liability on the truck, so I am gonna be tearing off that rear heater. But let's go ahead and get started on cleaning out this engine bay. Engine bay is done. It's looking a lot better than before. The area that I mentioned previously under here by the fuse box is super clean. All that power steering residue is gone. We got both of the wheel wells totally clean. Also, make sure if you're doing this on your own truck, you cover anything important in aluminum foil just to protect it from the water. You don't want water getting on certain things in the engine compartment. I feel kind of stupid saying this, but I didn't realize the wheel wells were green. They were so dirty I couldn't even tell. But yeah, they look pretty good after everything's nice and clean. As far as the suspension goes, we got all the suspension components nice and clean. Panhard bar, squeaky clean. You rub your hand on this, no dirt, grime, anything. The drag links looking good. Tie rod, very clean. Got the whole axle housing clean, third member, and you'll see there's certain areas that aren't totally clean. As I said, we're not shooting for perfect here. I think the saying is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I think that's the saying. I'm super guilty of that. I could sit out here all day to clean that one bracket. It's not gonna make a difference. I'm never gonna see it. It doesn't need to be that clean. But the transmission, man, I cannot believe how clean this transmission is. Doesn't it look beautiful? The transmission though, I wanted this 100% clean, so I did go a little bit overboard on that, but you know, the results speak for themselves. This transmission it looks brand new. I could not be more stoked on how clean this transmission came out. Well guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this project. We'll get back to the Land Cruiser in the next one. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you don't wanna miss when I post new content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.
Here we go, at the top of the class on a roll, and it's time to run it up, yeah you know. Maxed out, put the pedal to the floor.